Time to hang out with my sister girl. Hey, sister girl on films. Hey, sister girl on films. Hey.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Sister Girl on Films, and I am back, like I promised, with my thoughts on the book to movie adaptation of The Perfect Find. Now, if you saw my review of the movie, I was not a fan of that movie. Like, the info card should be up somewhere. The link for the video will be down below. It's going to be in card, all the things. So go check out my thoughts on the movie, because I'm not going to go too much into the movie in this. I will a little bit, you know, when I get to the comparison part of the video, but I'm not going to give a review of the full movie. Perfect Find. As far as the book, it's a fun read, okay? It really is giving me like that 90s vibe when it comes to the writing style. So think like Eric Jerome Dickey or Carl Weber. Like, those were the dudes back in the day. Side note, I hate that Lovers and Friends was never made into a film, because that was like one of my faves, but I digress. So the book overall, I feel like it really did a great job of building out the characters. Jenna, I love the character of Jenna in the book. I liked how the whole idea of like being a fish out of water, you know, going from being the it girl to being the girl that don't know nothing about nothing and having to depend on people half her age to really help her in a field where she was like the one that was calling the shots before. And so that whole idea of just like starting over and kind of starting at the bottom when you were once at the top, I enjoy that about the book a lot. I also like how the book really kind of tackles the idea of age and dating and what it really means to connect with someone, and does age really matter, and kind of the fact that it really does, and that, you know, at the end of the day, no matter how connected you could feel to somebody or how much you might have in common with somebody, sometimes age really does play a factor, and that can really be a determination of whether or not a relationship is going to work. Now, I did read some reviews of the book on Amazon, and people were saying that there were like typos in the book. I listened to it on Audible, so I can't really speak to typos and things like that, so I can't factor that into my rating, but I for sure would give The Perfect Find a 4 out of 5. I feel like it was an enjoyable read. Some of the things I did not like about the book, because again, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm not a huge fan of like May-December type romances where the younger love interest is like way young in their 20s. So like Eric in the book, he's 22. To me, that is like way too young. Jenna in the book had just turned 40. And so while it does fit the formula for a May-December romance, 22 it's way too close to like not legal. Like, it's legal, but like basically like almost not even. I don't see why, you know, Eric couldn't have been like 25, and Jenna, her age could have been bumped up like a couple more years, like 42, 43, and then it still would have been a May-December romance, but then he would have been a little bit older, and I wouldn't have probably been as grossed out by some of like the sex scenes and things like that in the book. And the idea of May-December romances is nothing that's new. You know, it's not groundbreaking either. You know, we see that in How Stella Got Her Groove Back, you know, Their Eyes Were Watching God, you know, which are also books that are referenced in this book. So it's nothing new. You know, and it also exists where, you know, the May-December can be the older man and the younger woman, which tends to be more taboo. And for whatever reason, the older woman and the younger man feels like it's more acceptable, but I feel like they're both problematic. Nonetheless, that was probably one of the drawbacks for me in the book, is the age difference. Not just the May-December aspect, although again, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I just needed Eric to be just like a couple years older, and it would have been all right for me. But now let's go ahead and get into the book versus the movie comparison. Now, let me start off by saying that typically people tend to enjoy the book versions of media more so than the movie, which, you know, unless you're an avid reader, you might be like, I don't see how, because you get the visuals with the movie. But for avid readers, like, don't worry, we got the visuals. Although I found out recently that not everybody has a picture in their mind when they read. I can't understand how that could be a thing, but it is. But I get a visual when I read, so I definitely enjoy reading. But you know, it makes sense why people would enjoy a book more than the movie, because with the book, we're allowed into those internal musings of like our characters and things like that. So a lot of times their motivations for doing things is much more like fleshed out than it is in the movie version, where unless there's like a shit ton of exposition, sometimes you just kind of have to guess what the motivation is, or they have to try to play it out through action or through images. So, you know, it's understandable that people, you know, had a visceral reaction to this movie if they're a fan of the book, because quite frankly, the movie is nowhere near as good as the book. We're gonna keep it real.
Like, how many of my friends will you all allow me to cast in this? Because I'd like to go for all of them. And so it was like Lala Anthony, who we've been friends since before the Fellas, and Aisha Hines and Gina Torres, who is one of the finest actors of our generation, our little cutie Keith Powers, and Stilo Brandt. Like, we just had the best time.
So yeah, y'all heard it for yourself. Now, if you saw my movie review, you might remember where I, in particular in reference to Lala Anthony, said that it felt like Lala Anthony was benefiting from this inner circle that exists in Black Hollywood. And I know it exists throughout Hollywood in general, but, you know, I'm only referencing Black Hollywood because I watch a lot of Black films. But, you know, it feels like there's a lot of this, like nepotism in terms of friendship, where it's like, you know, I'm gonna put on my friend zone and things like this. And I feel like I was right when it came to the casting of Lala Anthony in this movie, which I was so taken aback by, because I don't think she's that great of an actress. So yeah, so essentially Gabrielle Union just put all her friends in this movie, which makes a whole lot of sense. Let me start with the secondary characters. So I'm gonna go from the secondary characters, where I would have changed the casting, to our main characters. First, let's start with Tim. So in the book, he's described as being 5'5", so he's a wee little man, okay? And has tattoos, and he's a Black guy. So Stilo Brim being cast as Tim, first and foremost, Stilo Brim being cast, period. Sir, what else have you been in? So like, what? I'm not gonna get... Maybe he has a budding acting career that I'm not aware of, but all I know him from is ridiculousness.
I did see a side boner, I thought, from the beginning.
And it's ridiculous that he was cast in this role. But for me, I would have loved to have seen Jordan Jones of Bel-Air in the role of Tim. I feel like, number one, Jordan Jones, he is a shorter guy. He's very handsome, has beautiful chocolate skin. He does have tattoos. His demeanor really gives me Tim, somebody who is a little preppy but likes to try to be a little hood, can be the voice of reason for Eric, because that was really Tim's overall purpose in the book. Like, Tim wasn't there just to be like a fixture in the film that just was there for this one comedic moment with his lips swelling up. No, he was really like Eric's hit back to reality. Like, he was the person that was like, look, I know you feeling this girl, but like, why are you really keeping her from us? Like, do you not want her to see that at the end of the day, you are still just a 22-year-old guy? Like, you still smoke weed, you love to play video games, you love to have these abstract ass conversations about anime. Like, do you not want her to see this part of yourself? Because at the end of the day, that is also who you are. And if she can't accept that, then is she really accepting of you? And really having Eric question, you know, how much of himself is Jenna really ready to accept without really changing him? And so, number one, the fact that that whole dynamic was removed from the film was annoying. But then also, Stilo Brim probably couldn't have acted that, because what? So for me, my Tim in my brain when I listen to this book is absolutely Jordan Jones. Y'all let me know your thoughts in the comments. Billy. Billy in the book is described as being busty, cutie, like a nurturing mama bear. In my mind, I had Tia Mowry. Listen, if you read the book, think of how Billy is portrayed in the book. Now imagine Tia Mowry. Tia Mowry to me says freaking nurturing mama bear. Her and her sister, honey. I can see that. Now for Elodie, this is probably the secondary character that pissed me off the most. Because if you read the book or listened to the book, you know that Elodie was such an important role in the book. She was such a boss bitch. Like, the party where Eric and Jenna met was actually a party that she threw. Like, she was a jet setter. Like, she was like the party girl. She was the it girl, but she was also the voice of reason for Jenna. Billy was more kind of like goo-goo-eyed and was like, oh, I love romance. And Elodie was like, girl, Eric was supposed to be here for a good time, not a long time. What are you doing? Like, is this young man gonna be able to give you what you really want? Like, you want to have children, you want to settle down. He is 22, babes. What are you doing? Like, Elodie was the one that was like, Jenna, snap out of it. Let's get it together. Because she was such a pivotal role in the book, I couldn't understand why they would cast, I understood, why they would cast Lala Anthony in this role. Because not only did they cast her in this role of such an important character, but then also they diminished her role to these really one-off funny scenes, which weren't really that funny. And she was just kind of like a yes man. It just didn't make sense to me. So now for me, Gabrielle Denise. So Gabrielle Dennis and Tia Mowry just should have been part of the cast. And one of them could have been Billy, one of them could have been Elodie. And it would have been a lot better for me. So let's talk about Brian. So Brian, for me, was the biggest miss in casting, again, because they were insistent on doing an all-black cast, which, you know, that's your prerogative as a director. It is your creative vision. You do what you want to do. But in the book, Brian is described as a Jewish man with green eyes. The green eyes was emphasized. I didn't want to make sure he had these piercing green eyes. He's tall, very, very fine, got a lot of swag. Now, for me, I would have cast Trinity Whiteside as Brian. First of all, he fine as hell. That's number one. Now, I don't know if Trinity Whiteside is Jewish or not, but I know he fine and he got green eyes, hazily green eyes. Also, Trinity Whiteside is biracial. He's biracial. So, if you still wanted an all-black cast, you could have put him in the movie. And that could have even been a point of discussion, that him being white passing and him being conservative and thought all this other shit. Like, there was something that could have worked with that. But for me, I definitely would have went with a Trinity Whiteside when it comes to casting. Next is Darcy. Now, Gina Torres did the damn thing as Darcy, okay? And I feel like she did a great job bringing Darcy to life for the most part. At least the rendition of Darcy that the director had in her brain. And this is a nitpick, because in the book, Darcy is a small woman, and her small stature was important to the book and the character, because it kind of was part of her identity, in the sense of, because she's so small, she feels like people underestimated her. And so when she was in rooms with men and people that were bigger than her, she had to be even bigger, and she had to do what she had to do to come out on top. That was like a part of her whole character, really. So to cast somebody who is damn near 6 feet tall, I get it, I guess, but I would have liked to seen a more petite actress to play the role of Darcy. Darcy was also described as having hazel brown eyes. She was Ghanaian, very petite frame. So for me, now it's hard to find an actress that, again, is in that 40-year-old range, because that easily could have been a Jada Pinkett, but Jada Pinkett is not in her 40s anymore, so it kind of wouldn't have made sense. Although Gabrielle Union and Gina Torres in their 50s as well, so quiet as kept, loud as it is, Jada Pinkett could have played this role, okay? But anyway, I would have cast, hear me out, y'all, I would have cast Rosario Dawson. Listen, y'all, listen. Rosario Dawson is a little bit of a smaller woman, but she's also a great actor too. So I don't feel like we would have missed out on anything in terms of performance. She's a really good actress. That would have been a great switch up for her. to play this type of character that was not very likable. So that's who I would have went with, Rosario Dawson, okay? All right, so our two main characters, y'all, this might be the most controversial, honey. I don't care. So Eric, I know the young girls love Keith Powers. I get it, he's very handsome. I'm not even gonna act like he's not. But in the book, not only just his physical description, because Eric is described as having like a lot of tattoos, he's tall, he's lanky, dark eyes. At one point, Jenna said he had like milk chocolate skin. He's Trini and Guyanese background. So the physical description is very particular. But here's where I feel like Keith Powers was not quite the right fit. It's the fact that Eric in the book is really kind of like, has like that bad boy rebel type of vibe to him. Whereas in the movie, Eric was like preppy, the goody two-shoe, mama's boy. Two totally different characters altogether. Like, you're asking for two different things at this point. And so as I was listening to the book, the visual I had in my mind for who should have been Eric.
Tell your man it's time is up. Let's snuggle up. I'm feeling on your bubble butt.
Trevor Jackson. Listen, y'all. Don't come for me. If you don't agree, don't come for me. But think about Trevor Jackson. Yes, not him on Grownish. I actually don't even watch the show, so I don't know how he is. But like his persona as just like a celebrity. Number one, he has the tattoos. His music that he does the covers for is like very, very sensual, very sexy. He gives bad boy. He really does give that to me. And as I was re-listening to the book and envisioning Trevor Jackson, I was like, this just makes perfect sense to me. I don't know why he wasn't cast as Eric, because to me, he is Eric. Y'all might disagree, but Trevor Jackson. And Jenna. Let's get to the book description of Jenna. So the book description is kind of vague, but there are some very important things that really stand out, other than just the illustration on the front of the book. But also, Jenna is described as having naturally curly hair, because when she went to go move with her parents, she didn't have the mental fortitude to deal with her hair. She just let her natural curls come back. That was the most important. Like, her curls and her natural hair were damn near a character by themselves in the book. So the fact that Gabrielle Union had that damn straight wig on the whole movie was so annoying. And then I don't know if that pitiful little wig at the end was supposed to be a reference to Jenna's naturally curly hair, or if it was supposed to be a reference to when her and Eric got in an argument in the cab in the book, and then she walked back to the office in the rain, and Darcy said she looked like the Cowardly Lion, which I thought that was hilarious. So naturally curly hair, maybe fairer skin, could maybe be mistaken for biracial, and slim build, y'all. Yeah, this is controversial again, probably. But for me, I would have either cast Grace Byers or Corbin Reed. Listen, Grace Byers, aesthetically, to me, is Jenna. When I think of Jenna, I think of Grace Byers. I feel like she fits all the physical attributes that I think of when I read the description of Jenna. And she's also very funny and can be awkward and can really give like that uncertainty, but also a little bit of that confidence underneath. I feel like she would have been a great Jenna. And Corbin Reed, you know, if you've watched any of season 1 or 2 of Run the World, I think she does a phenomenal job on that show. I think she's funny. She's very sexy. She's a very strong-willed woman in that show. And then also aesthetically, she fits the description of Jenna. So for me, it would have been one of these two women. Y'all let me know your thoughts below, what y'all think about that. I know that's a different aspect, but that's just where I wanted to go with it because I had an issue with the casting. So let's get to this book versus movie comparison. So I came across an interview that Numa, is it Perrier? I think it is Perrier. That seems right with your last name, did. And this is what she said about making The Perfect Find, the movie. I really love working with a book and adapting that. I love having that base to go back to. So for me, having the book as the anchor to be able to dive back into and find the little nuances in there, that's very helpful to me. I don't so much look at having the book as an obstacle. I look at it as a big source of support for me as I'm figuring things out. Then I let my imagination fly from there. Baby, boy, did she let her damn imagination fly, honey. Child, was the book there to hold up a coffee table? Because I don't, okay, let me stop. So here are some of the key differences that probably got on my nerves the worst. And then also some that I didn't necessarily have an issue with from the book to the movie. The biggest issue I had with the movie in comparison to the book was the outright ignoring the complexity of the relationship between Eric and Darcy. Like, I just couldn't deal with it. I felt like in the book, the disdain that Eric had for his mother was so apparent. Like, and she didn't really have that emotional motherly relationship with him either. Like, her way of supporting her son was through making sure he went to the best schools, making sure he got the best education, making sure he was financially good, making sure he had a roof over his head. But as far as her being there as like a nurturing, caring mother, she just was not there. And now, mind you, Darcy had a very like traumatic pregnancy with Eric. Like, her parents sent her to a convent where the nuns tried to beat her into miscarrying the baby when she ran away from there, and that didn't work. Her father tried to, I think they said he tried to have her drink like virgin olive oil or something till she miscarried. So she basically ran away from home while she was pregnant with Eric and just had to figure it out on her own, and doing that while she was, I think, like 16, 17 years old. So she was very young, pregnant on her own, and, went through a lot of trauma when she was pregnant with Eric. And so after having Eric, she didn't really have a good relationship with Eric's father. Eric's father died when he was 10, although in the movie he was 2. But in the book, Eric actually had a relationship with his father and really loved his father a lot. And Darcy didn't like that. Like, she even like admonished Eric and was like, no, you are a veil. You ain't nothing like your father. You will never be like him. You need to be more like me. And so Eric grew to resent his mother. And I think that was such an interesting story to bring to film that they not only didn't address, but they changed the entire dynamic of Darcy and Eric's relationship, where they essentially made Eric a little pansy. He was like a little mama's boy. Like the part where we first see Eric and Darcy and Jenna all in the room together, and she's like, "Aren't you my little baby? Aren't you?" I was so frustrated seeing that because it was so inconsistent from the characters in the book for Eric and Darcy. Like, Darcy made it clear, like, even though they kind of was like, oh, it's not a nepotism thing, he had to really work hard for it, but I really support him. Darcy in the book does not support Eric's directing and his movie career, his interests at all. She thinks it's a waste of time. She mocks it even. And so I really feel like this was a huge miss on the part of the director, because it's such an important story. And I would have loved to have seen Gina Torres and Keith Powers be able to really go there in their acting to really show that strained relationship between Eric and Darcy, which added depth to this story, honestly. The other issue that I had was the half-assed telling of Jenna and Brian's story. That was probably the most egregious change from the book to the movie for me. So in the book, we get a lot of detail about Jenna and Brian's story. We find out, first of all, in the book, they were together for 20 years versus the movie where it was 10 years. Hell, 10 to 20, that's too damn long to be with somebody wasting your goddamn time, okay? But eventually he proposed to her because it felt like the right thing to do. But then he started dragging his feet when it came to wedding planning. And then 5 years turned to 10, turned to 15, turned to 20. And eventually Jenna was like, okay, like, what are we doing? Because now Brian didn't change his mind about wanting to have kids. He didn't change his mind about wanting to be married. They not really having sex no more. It's just like a loveless relationship. And so that's what prompted Jenna to cut the food, act up, show out, have paparazzi show up, which made her disgraced in the industry. But that's what was really the thing that separated her from Brian. I guess at this point, he done got back on his feet because now he trying to woo Jenna and trying to pretend like he's showing interest in shit that he really ain't interested in, like taking her to movies and shit in the park. She like, child, I'm over it. I don't want none of this. Because by this time, she in a relationship with Eric and she in love with him. So Brian is too little too late, sir. But none of that translated to the movie. In the movie, Brian, we see him all in the opening credits, which, raise your hand if you sit and watch the opening credits of a movie. Raise your hand. I don't. Child, that's when I get up, go get something to drink. That's when I go to the bathroom. That's when I go get my snacks. That's when I'm still scrolling on social media, okay? I ain't checking it. I'm not paying attention to no opening credits. Matter of fact, I didn't even realize that opening credit scene was that way until I tried to watch the movie the second time. Okay, so not only is this important story only relegated to this opening scene that half people probably didn't pay attention to, but then when we finally get to see Jenna and Brian interact in the movie, it's for a split second because his mother's passed away. It's just kind of like a forced plot element to cause tension between Eric and Jenna. Like, he doesn't really try to woo her. She's not feeling it. Like, it just seemed pointless, if I'm being honest. If you're not going to really flesh out this storyline, don't even bring it up. Another issue that I had from the book to the movie was making Jenna and Eric's relationship in the movie the stereotypical rom-com relationship. I hated it. In the book, Jenna and Eric had a love-hate friendship throughout the majority of the book. Like, they weren't even dating for the good majority of the book. So it took a long time and it was a slow burn before we got to Jenna and Eric's relationship in the book. Whereas in the movie, hell, like instantly, like I screamed about the pacing in the movie, and this is why. Because the idea of, in the beginning, Jenna realizing that being with Eric just doesn't make sense, no matter how attracted she is to him, really added to the frustration as a reader of like, dang girl, give it a chance, or at least I want y'all just to kiss or do something with this attraction. But the fact that Tia Williams was very intentional in making us wait for it so that we are anticipating this romantic interaction just as much as our main characters are, it adds something to it. And then also just Jenna and Eric creating this friendship also added to the understanding of why they were so connected once they finally got together and why they loved each other so much. Whereas in the movie, it felt so rushed that I'm like, I don't see the chemistry and I don't see why these two would ever be romantically tied to each other, because you're not selling me on it. That will they, won't they vibe, even though some reviewers and critics were like, the will they, won't they thing was there. It wasn't there. It wasn't. It was there in the book, but definitely not in the movie. So I really hated how they changed the whole dynamic and the pacing of Eric and Jenna's relationship. I will say that I did like some of the changes that were made for Jenna from the book to the movie. Realistically, like, what 40-year-old wouldn't know how to navigate social media and the internet in 2023, right? So if they had carried over that idea of her being like a fish out of water, it wouldn't have made sense. Let's just be honest. Hell, a 3-year-old can figure out an iPad these days. So if Jenna had, in today's time, gone from Virginia to come back to New York and was like, I don't know what a tweet is, we would have been like, what? So I do appreciate that they modernized some of those aspects of Jenna, from the book to the movie. However, Jenna being a disgraced it girl versus a fashion-forward boss bitch, that change just was not it for me, and it didn't make Jenna relatable for me. Like that opening scene when Jenna gets to Darcy in the movie and she opens up both doors and like the air comes in and like Jinx and Terry are like taken aback by her. I hated that scene with a passion because number one, it felt self-serving on the part of Gabrielle Union. I'm gonna keep it all the way real. So here's how Jenna's first day as Stylezine was described in the book. I am a 40-year-old woman in a $4.99 shirt from Wet Seal because I sold all my designer clothes to move back here, and I have exactly enough in my account to cover this month's rent, and right now I'd consider American Eagle as extravagance. I'm a former glamour girl hoping that no one notices the vague stain on my skirt, a stain I don't even know the origins of, since I got it at a stoop sale in my new hood, a sketched out Brooklyn block where I share real estate with a KFC and a beauty salon called Snippet Real Good. Now, what about that says fabulous? It doesn't. Ugh, I hated how they changed Jenna so much in the movie. It's not even funny. Like, that version of Jenna makes so much more sense. The version we got in the movie is, again, it's giving Gabrielle Union wanted to be Carrie Bradshaw. The ending. So when asked about her decision to change the ending of this book to what we got in the movie, here's what Perrier had to say. I was very interested in embracing it, and Gabrielle wanted to play that very complicated character, and it doesn't make Jenna less complicated that we didn't go there in the story, but it was just one of those things where it came down to, this is a rom-com. It should have a happy ending, Perrier said. No. The ending of the book is so good because it is the final battle of control between Eric and Darcy, and him going off on her realizing that her plan to humiliate Jenna at the cost of also embarrassing her son just kind of blew up in her face. And then Jenna finding out that she was pregnant, but then not really telling Eric about it, because by that time her and Eric had broken up, and then she was fired, and now we get a time jump to 4 years later in the book. Jenna just coincidentally happens to run into Eric at the park when she's with her son, who is Eric's child. And now y'all tell me if I was the only one, but y'all, as I was listening to this book and Jenna was running towards Eric, screaming his name, my stomach is dropping out just thinking about it, and he didn't hear her. Was I the only one that was expecting a woman to approach Eric and kiss him or hug him like that was his new bae before he had a chance to see Jenna, and then Jenna kind of would walk away defeated, having never told Eric about his son? I thought that's how this book was going to end. I really did. I'm happy it didn't, but I was afraid that's where it was going to go. Y'all let me know if I was the only one. But I loved the way the book ended, because Jenna and Eric reunited. Eric is now, I guess he would be 26 at this point. Jenna, let him know why she didn't tell him about her being pregnant. She allowed him to meet her son. She named her son after his father. She let Eric live his life because she did recognize that he was too young and could not give her what she wanted when he inadvertently gave her what she wanted. But then she really gave him the choice just to live his life and not feel like he had to be obligated to stay with her, thus probably growing to resent her and everything else. So I enjoyed the ending in the book. I hated the ending of the movie. I hated the ending of the movie before I even knew what the ending of the book was. It felt rushed. It didn't feel earned. The way that they just emasculated Eric when it came to Darcy, reprimanding him in front of Jenna, was so annoying to me. Even her damn wig, that was probably the worst part. But so overall for me, obviously I feel like the book is much better than the movie by far. The biggest thing and the biggest change was those really deep relationships with Jenna and Eric and Jenna and Brian, Darcy and Eric, that weren't explored, that still could have allowed this movie to be a rom-com, but would have gave it some depth and would have made it a much more compelling story. Like, I can still get the comedic elements while also getting that deep story about the trauma that Eric had to deal with his mom, Darcy's trauma of being pregnant with him, the beef between Jenna and Darcy being real, because it didn't really feel that intense in the movie, but these hoes didn't like each other. You know, really kind of going there. And I think that it short sells how good rom-coms can be when your assumption is that audiences will only go for a happy ending. I just don't find that to be true. And again, the ending of the book it's kind of ambiguous, but it turns out to be a happy ending, because then it kind of has you asking, now what if? Just like Love Jones. Love Jones wasn't a rom-com, it's a romantic movie. But even at the end of Love Jones, we don't know if Nina and Darius ended up getting back together. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. We don't know. And that's okay to leave us guessing and coming up with our own conclusions. I feel like that's okay. So overall, I really like this book. I'm going to finish listening to it for my own enjoyment. I tried to watch the movie a second time, like I said, in preparation for this video. I couldn't even get past the first 10 minutes. I was out. So I will not be returning to watch the movie. It was just not good to me. So y'all let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Y'all be easy on me. Like I said, this is my first time doing this type of video. So if I was rambling, it's too long or whatever, you can give me your feedback, but I probably won't be doing no video like this again. No way. So again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like the movie or the book better, let me know your thoughts. And as always, y'all, like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'm gonna see y'all next time for something new.
Hey, sister girl on films, you don't want to miss a thing, better stay tuned in. So lay back, get into the vibe, in the mood, real reviews from a sister's point.